Mr. Narayanan is a management postgraduate from Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi, and is skilled in business planning, sales, bank assurance management, and management information systems. He is the founder and CEO of Reach Edgecon Group, which provides insurance consultancy to organizations, including PSU, banks, private banks, and NBFCs, microfinance companies, and bodies like IBA and BSE. He has recently made his debut as an author of a book on leadership titled Leadership Gita. Mr. Narayanan will talk about how organizations can break through by building leaders who have a strong sense of environment and can function efficiently in an overcharged VUCA world. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Narayanan.
Are you ready?
Over to you, sir.
Yeah, Juhi, you can put off the screen, and I'll just want to take the opportunity to welcome Narayan personally. Thank you so much for joining us. And Narayan, great friend, great mentor, if I might say so, because we have had so many years of association. Fantastic entrepreneur. You can learn from him how to scale up a business beautifully. And now also I'm very proud to say a co-author. So we both wrote Leadership Gita. And today, after this session, we're going to do, we're going to do that, Narayan, later on. There's going to be a formal book launch of the Leadership Gita. And this is the first public showcase of Leadership Gita. And there is something in it for all of you, which I will announce after the session. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Hari, and thanks a lot, Juhi, for that lovely introduction. Because we are on a digital platform, I'll just add a couple of more things that might be of relevance. In my journey, also you talked about being a consultant, but I also run a tech company, and we've raised funding from overseas investors to the extent of $1.35 million. And we have scaled up the technology platform. So we provide a technology platform called Mextra, which is quite popular and runs in over 40 corporates, but it's mostly for the larger corporates. Like, for example, part of it is with Wipro, Times of India as a client, and so on and so forth. Also, a little bit on the topic that I'm going to talk about, which is leadership. So what's my credibility to that is obviously a question that anybody should be asking. So I was in senior positions for several years, but I left a large organization, Bajaj Allianz, as a chief distribution officer there. And at that point of time, the combined as head of sales, we had about 13,000 employees who through various departments would fall under my structure. And we did grow the business a lot during that period. And at that point of time, I always thought of the various things that come to play, when you are a leader and you have a larger responsibility towards the organization, towards your team, and towards your clients at large. And some of those experiences, along with Hari, who put that genesis of the idea into my head that I should be writing a book. And since he had written books earlier, we co-authored this book called Leadership Gita. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But that's why I'm here to talk about leadership today. It's one of my favorite subjects. So one would say, typically, what is leadership? You can define it in multiple ways, but the way we've defined it in the book and the way I like to understand it is the ability to handle complexity. So leadership is nothing but the ability to handle complexity, and complexity could be in the terms of the task, in terms of the team, in terms of the objective, and a combination of all these things, and the environment, the people that you work with. So the ability to handle all this and navigate through all this is the complexity is what we believe is leadership, right? Now, when it comes to leadership, there are 6 aspects, and we'll talk about it a little bit more maybe during the book launch. But the first and foremost, I would say, is purpose, because without purpose, it's very difficult to lead and lead people and lead yourself to do something. And today, I'll quote examples a little bit from Bollywood and a little bit from sports, because I think these are things that people like, appreciate, and understand. So when it comes to purpose, I always think of this movie, Chuck Day. I mean, many of you may have seen Chuck Day. So, initially everybody has their own objectives. Everybody is thinking of their own selves, their own states, their own goals, their own desires while they are part of a team. But the way Kabir Khan in that movie, which is of course played by Shah Rukh Khan, puts together the whole team and gives them a larger purpose. The larger purpose for playing for India, for the team. The team is larger than yourself, and how he drives all of them, including rivals, towards a common goal. The ability of a leader is to carry the purpose through, and if one can get the purpose right, then the team comes together. So everybody has to have the same sense of purpose with whatever is a task that you're trying to accomplish, whether it's a sales goal, whether it's an HR goal, whether it is any kind of goal that one is talking about. There has to be a single specific singularity of purpose, if I may say so. And if that purpose is clear and you're able to articulate it to your people then and yourself, then there is a very high chance that you'd be able to deliver on that purpose. Otherwise, of course, if your purpose is not well defined, then you live day to day and you do something to manage, and it's very difficult to lead people that way. And eventually, they will see through you, and it will all come apart at some point. So, sense of purpose is very important. And of course, in the larger context, there are political leaders like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and a lot of people who have achieved a lot because they had a sense of purpose. So that is the first thing that I would like to highlight on leadership. Of course, the book will give you more insights. The second, I would like to narrate a story. The second is courage and self-confidence. It also comes from purpose. All of you have seen Rocky movies, the Rocky series, not Sanjay Dutt wala Rocky, the Sylvester Stallone wala Rocky, the boxing Rocky. I would like to keep it interactive. I mean, so Parul, Niharika, Gunjan, Sanjeevani, Juhi. Have you seen this movie called Rocky, Sylvester Stallone?
We can have more people on the video, please. I think that will be nice. Unless there are bandwidth issues.
Yeah, so have any of you seen this movie called Rocky? Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think they had multiple episodes of it. So who has seen it? Come on. Say no if you're not seen it. And I advise that you see at least part 1. Okay. So this movie is all about a boxer, which is played by Sylvester Stallone, and his success and how he becomes world champion and all. But interesting aspect is that how this movie came about. Sylvester Stallone was he had a lot of bad luck in life. His delivery itself was very difficult. In fact, he had to be removed with forceps and all, and he had paralysis. So one side of his face is paralyzed, and he's a top-notch actor. Think about the actor having one side of his face paralyzed. He was a very poor guy, and initially to make money, he even did, I would not like to, go into details, but very, not desirable kind of roles in certain movies and all that. And his life was very difficult. But, he came up, one day he saw a fight between Muhammad Ali and Muhammad Ali's fight, and he was a fan of boxing, obviously. And he decided to make a movie about boxing. And he was very clear, clarity of purpose, and that leads to courage, that he will play that role himself. He had no money at this point of time. He had nothing. He was struggling. So he wrote the script of Rocky 1. And he went nobody would give him even an appointment because he was nothing. I mean, he was absolutely nothing. But he spent almost 2-3 years going from people to people. And finally, somebody really liked the story. So they said, at that stage, when he had no money, somebody gave him a huge sum, about $100,000, and said, you can take this money and give us the story, and we will play someone else as the lead, because you can't act. Your face is paralyzed and all. But he was so clear. He was so poor at that point of time. He said, no, I will only act in it myself. And he did this till finally the movie was made. He played Rocky, and the rest, as you know, is history. And he became one of the biggest stars, and it became one of the biggest hits, and 6 episodes were cast. At least six sequels were made. I don't know if more were meant, but it's an amazing story. It's a true story, and that's the courage of a person. So that second aspect of leadership is courage and self-confidence. So that's great. That's a very important aspect for any leader to have. And that when the testing times are there, that is the time when this courage and confidence aspect really comes out in leaders. And if you have that, then you can very well lead people. The third aspect I would like to talk about is, teams and trust and empowerment. It's basically about leading a team. So when you are leading a team, how do you think of it? Let's again talk about sports. Okay, let's say you are Dhoni, and Dhoni was the captain of India for many years, as you know, and he was a very successful captain. He won us the World Cup, as you all know, and many other tournaments. There was nothing, hardly everything that India could win, probably it won under him. Of course, Saurabh had done a great job, and he inherited a decent team. But when it comes to managing a team, you have different players in the team. You have, on one hand, players like Virat Kohli and maybe Gautam Gambhir and others who were well established at that point of time. And you have some newcomers like maybe Bumrah and others who came along later. So as a leader, is it that everybody is treated the same way by you? No. So the thing is, Dhoni, as a leader, he could take everybody along, and depending on the person's strength and character and experience, he would treat that person differently and give him different roles. That's why the team became so successful. That's the same thing. You have to adapt your leadership style to your team. You'll have in your team members who are very experienced, probably some more experienced than you, members who are very good at a particular task. This is not one size fits all, like Gaurav said. Leadership is also about recognizing the strength of your team and utilizing the strengths of each person and treat him differently. It's also not a constant. It changes from time to time. So let's look at this. Somebody is a very experienced Ranji Trophy player, and so the way his captain would lead him would be very different. But then he gets his breakthrough and goes into India team, international team. Now he's a newcomer there. Now it's the same person. And this happens in organization all the time when people get promoted. Somebody is a manager at one level, maybe a regional level, but then he's promoted to a national role. So his boss treats him very differently than the boss who treat him at a senior level when he was a regional head, which he may have been doing for many years. That inputs that were needed for him were very different from the time that he's become a national leader, when he's a newbie at that job, and the kind of skills that are needed to be imparted to him are very different. It's the same person. He comes with a lot of experience, but now his role has changed and his requirements are different. So leadership also recognizes this, that the same person may need different inputs at different points of time. So it's about adapting to the situation, and it's also about empowering people. Empowerment is a very loosely defined, loosely used word. But when I say empowerment, what it means is trust. So you imagine, bosses there are who will just breathe down your neck, who will give you a task, and probably after every half an hour is, "Arey, kya hua, iska kya hua, arey, output kya hua?" You're more focused about managing your boss than the task. Because I don't want to name them, but they're called asshole managers, So they love to breathe down your neck. So that never works actually. So it's when you say empowerment, it also comes with trust. So as a leader, you coach, you develop the capability in your team, give them the task and empower them. And when you say empower, you do two things. You give them responsibility and you give them authority. Authority to decide on the task, on what they want to do and how they want to do, and the responsibility to deliver it. And you don't give micro details and breathe down their necks. That's how large teams can function, and that's how Dhoni as a captain would work. He's always said this, that he gives the goal, he tells them what is expected broadly, and then he leaves it to them. They have the responsibility and the authority to deliver. So they whether want to play 1 over slow and then pick up, or whether they want to take more singles, or they want to do it in boundaries, he leaves it to them. But they know their roles and tasks, and he's not a guy who's going to hold you sometimes you fail. So that's about teams and team management. It's also covered a little bit more detail in our book, which you'll find very interesting. Here I'd like to give another example also, and this comes from a movie. And again, I'm sure all of you love movies. So you all must have seen the movie Dangal, right? It was a super hit, and it's more recent than Stallone, maybe Rocky. So in Dangal, there's this dialogue, where Amir Khan talks to the coach of his daughter who's gone for wrestling, and he says, "आप अगर सेवाग को राहुल बनाने जाओगे तो ना राहुल द्रविड़ बनेगा, but वो सेवाग भी नहीं रहेगा." So that is the thing about leadership, is to find the right people with the right skill set for the right roles and let them do it in their style. So by trying to make Sehwag technically perfect and play like a Dravid, he would not become a Dravid, but he would lose his skill as Sehwag. And this is something organizations always, by many a times I've seen many leaders fail in this. They want everybody to behave in the same way. No, that's not possible. And that's not a team. That's not a team. Then you're cloning everyone. A team requires different skill sets, different abilities, different temperaments, and that is complexity. And leading out through that is what is the leadership. So that is a dialogue I really appreciate, and I could empathize with that dialogue. You know that Sehwag ko Dravid mat banao, and similarly Dravid Sehwag nahi ban pata. So the two are very important. I would also like to talk a little bit, about feedback, because in leadership, this is a very underestimated aspect. You need to give feedback for people to improve. But how do you give feedback? Firstly, when you give feedback, let's say you go on a sales call as a senior sales leader with someone. He would do probably, there are 5 things that needed to be done. Maybe he did 3 things well and 1 thing okay, and 1 thing he really screwed up. I mean, he did really badly. So what would you do? If you're giving him feedback, what are the things that you would do? Since this is more like a one-way session, I guess. So one of the things that I would do probably, and which I have done, is I will firstly, feedback is always private. If you're giving genuine feedback, don't give it in front of people, because any feedback also means that you're giving an area of improvement for the person, right? Typically, you talk about something for improvement, and people don't want to hear that in public. I mean, most people don't want. Some people have the maturity to take that in public, but give feedback in private. So the first cardinal rule about feedback is give it in private. Second is start with the positives. So if he did 3 things well, I think we need to talk about, because many leaders I've seen will jump into that one aspect that he did not do well and just berate him on that, rather than talk about the other 3 things he does well, because next time he's going to forget those 3 things which he did well, probably do them badly, and may or may not do the one area of improvement that you asked him to do. So it's better that one starts with the positive. One talks about the 3 things that he did well, encourage him. That also opens the person up to listen to feedback, because he knows here you're not here only to put him down. You're praising him, you're enhancing his self-confidence as his leader. And then you talk about the one area probably which he could have done better. And the idea here is not just to say, you did not do well, this is bad, you don't know how to talk, you don't know what, you pissed off the client. No, that's not the idea. You may say all that, but you also need to tell him how he should have done it, what he should have done probably, and give an example of something that you would have said or how you would have handled the situation a little differently, so that they can understand your feedback. So just telling someone, you know what, you're pathetic at a sales call. So how does this help? Or you're pathetic when it comes to introducing a client. How does it help? You need to be more specific when you give feedback. You need to be able to articulate what is it that the person should be doing different or better, or take a different approach, which is what is valid and constructive feedback. And this is something that leaders need to know and learn. This does not come naturally to most people, because we are supposed to criticize. But this is, again, a very important aspect of leadership. The last thing I would like to talk about a little bit is, leaving a legacy. So a leader always builds a legacy, and that comes through when you have a body of work, and when you treat people well, and you lead from the front, and you are capable in your own field, and you're humble. So we talk about so many people, but the people who leave legacies are the people you remember. So, for example, I would say many people would have led, GE in its journey as a company, 120, 130-year-old, whatever company. But everybody remembers Jack Welch, right? Because he left a legacy. Many presidents were there of India, right? But you remember Abdul Kalam. Many people led ISRO, but again, you remember Abdul Kalam, the same person, 2 different roles. Many people were election commissioners, but you remember TN Seshan, right? So why is that? Because they left a legacy, and the way they conducted themselves with ethical behavior, leading from the front, being fair, standing up for what you believe, delivering on the task, and encouraging their people, even at the cost of giving them the credit and putting oneself at the back. But ultimately, they are the people who left the legacy. So leaving a legacy, a leader has to think through that. And if his behavior is right as a leader, then he will leave a legacy. And you always remember your leaders through their legacies. And if you think of the people who come to your mind as leaders, they are coming to your mind as leaders because they have left legacies. Many people may have been in that position, may have done that thing, but the person who comes to your mind is the person who has left the legacy, right? So I think I have covered what I wanted to broadly. And I hope you liked the session, because webinars are tough to hold interest in. I've tried my best. So thanks a lot for listening in. And I do hope that you'll read the book there. I think you'll find it enjoyable. It's very simple. You can read it under 1 hour. I guarantee you that.
59 minutes.
59 minutes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think we can take some questions. We have some time for questions, right, Juhi?
Yes,
Sure.
sir.
Yeah. So we can take some questions. If anybody has something to comment, ask a question, you can unmute and speak.
Thank you, Narayan. I think the session was really good. So a question from my side, I like the points a lot. And the last point, can you expand a little on how to leave your legacy?
So how to leave your legacy is a body of work, and that happens when you practice leadership for a longer period of time, right? So to do one task well or to do something well, so people who leave legacies behind are people who have bodies of work. So if you look at the film industry, which everybody understands, you take Amitabh Bachchan. I mean, he's left a legacy, right? There are many actors, but there's a certain kind of memory which comes to your mind, which is which is the body of work over a period of time. Then it comes to sports. If we talk about Formula One, you have which is my favorite sport. You have Michael Schumacher, who left a legacy, and today Lewis Hamilton is leaving a legacy. So when you consistently practice leadership and you're consistently working as a leader, and you consistently stand by your team, you build a body of work, and that body of work then becomes enormous enough for a legacy to be left behind. You can't consciously say, I want to leave a legacy. You can say that, but it builds itself over a period of time. That I would not say is a trait of leadership, but it probably shows that the leadership you did was good and it had its impact. I mean, that's the best way I can answer the question.
And,
it's very difficult
like
to do one thing and be
yeah. Exactly. So you have to be consistent with the message that say that you go. So that will help you leave a legacy.
Absolutely.
And if also the people see that you're consistent with your messaging, I think that would be better, right?
Consistent with your messaging and true to your profession. So you see all these people, whether it's Sachin Tendulkar or whether it's Michael Schumacher or whether it's Amitabh Bachchan, whatever else, I'm not talking of their personal life, etc., etc. They're very consistent and truthful to their work. And you can see that. I mean, that's why it happens. They would be getting up at 5 o'clock, and even after, or Roger Federer, even after so many years, that motivation is there to go and for Sachin Tendulkar to get up in the morning at 5 o'clock and practice for 3 hours. He's never going to be dropped, but he probably still play if he didn't do that. And anyway, would be in the team. But that's what helps you build that legacy. That sense of purpose, that strength. Yeah.
So, for example, SPB, whom we unfortunately lost.
Yeah.
Recently, over a 40-year period, 45,000 songs. Now, that's an incredible legacy. Mohammad Rafi Saab or Kishore Kumar, Lata Mangeshkar, Asha Bhosle. I mean, this is all a legacy. So it's the body of work, very rightly said. It's how passionately you work for 40, 50 years sometimes. It's incredible. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Narayan, for answering my question. Thank you.
Most welcome. Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone?
So,
Or if
this is
you would
Hi,
like to share
welcome,
something.
Bharat Jethani. Wonderful to see you.
I joined it late, but I don't know whether I missed it out. So when leadership is there, there's success, a lot of success, right? Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes,
you are.
Yes, you are.
And with success, leaders carry attitude, ego, and when it comes to feedback, they don't see feedback as a positive feedback or something to improve. They look at it as a complaint or criticizing things, criticizing leadership in the organization. Now, how do you know that this leader can appreciate our feedback? That's a big challenge, maybe some of the people who are working in the organization, they are in the right intention to improve the organization, improve the productivity or improve the profits or whatever it is, and they give the right feedback, but is the leader taking that feedback? I mean, That's more important, and it may backfire them sometimes.
An extremely good question, and a very, very good question, and probably comes with a lot of experience that you asked that question.
Yeah.
So when I was talking of feedback, I was talking of feedback from the leader when you want to give a feedback to someone, which is much easier, obviously. When you're talking of feedback, so for example, if you want to give feedback to the prime minister of the country, he does 4 things well, but then he really screws up 4 things, let's say, right? So how do you give it to him if he's very arrogant and is not willing to listen, right? Or how do you give it to a person who is like India's current cricket captain, who comes across as a great cricketer, but sometimes very arrogant? So that's a very big dilemma for people who are working under very strong leaders. You perceive them to be very strong leaders, where they come as strong men, and strong men need not be necessarily strong leaders. Strong leaders are able to take good feedback. But your question is well appreciated. So there's a piece of advice only. I cannot really comment on this.
Yes.
One is that to give a feedback to somebody like that, first they need to trust you, and you need to win their confidence to give them feedback. So when you sense that if you're uncomfortable giving a leader a feedback, then your instinct is probably right, and in your best interest, just keep quiet. That's a practical sense of advice I can give anyone. And you will sense it when that person is comfortable. And again, but what I say, again, you say 2 good things before you give before you also give an input about what you want better. So you can say, you did the GST very well, and the intent behind 370 was very good, but this farm loss you should really think about, maybe. So so the person is more receptive when you give 2 good feedback and then talk about it. But instincts are normally right in these matters. So to give a leader a feedback coming from someone who's below, especially if you have a feeling that that leader may not take it in the right spirit, which is not correct, but you can't help it, right? So then you have to be winning his confidence before giving him the feedback, or in your own interest, it may be better to keep quiet.
And that is what a lot of people do it.
And
Yes.
generally it is observed
Very true.
that,
But eventually the tide changes.
and generally it's observed that strong personalities don't make great captains, whether in industry or whether in the field of cricket. And because they have so much expectations, and also the ego factor. And there are various examples. Ian Botham, for example, could not make a great captain. He's a celebrity in England. So, but he could not make a great captain. Tendulkar, for example. Can I say Donald Trump? I don't know, but I think yes, he could not win the second term. So some very strong personalities that don't tend to make good leaders. But a Saurav Ganguly was not a Tendulkar, but he became a great guy because of his leadership, and not just because of his playing talent. And in fact, in our book, we talk about Saurav Ganguly.
Yeah. So, but there's a difference between a strong leader and an arrogant leader. I think
Right.
Strong leader is good. An arrogant leader, and you also mentioned that leaders become arrogant over a period of time due to success.
Yes.
That happens, and that's when the tide changes for them typically, because then the people stop communicating, they stop telling, and eventually things go wrong. So that is one of the aspects of leadership, and it is a very important aspect to be able to listen and take feedback, which also incidentally we talked about in our book. Thanks for asking, Bharat, but it's a very valid question. But from the perspective of someone who wants to give a leader a feedback, if you don't sense the comfort, then don't give the feedback, because it might bounce, it might hit you really badly.
Yeah.
And HR does not typically tend to protect you. So there are always exceptions. There are always exceptions. But by the norm,
See,
that's what would happen.
all the delegates, they did not hear that last sentence.
Yeah, so
Can I share my
people
input,
should be
Narayan, on
awake
this?
through a session.
Yes, Belaji, please go ahead.
So Narayan, since we were talking about leadership here, I would like to add a little bit. Giving feedback to someone senior, but since we're talking about leadership, it is the style of leadership that we need to inculcate, where we say we lead by example.
Right.
Now, as leaders, we would be giving feedback to our team. So if I am open as a leader to receiving feedback in the upward direction, I am open, I perceive the feedback of my team members in a positive way and work towards it in a constructive manner. That would inculcate leadership in my team members in the form of accepting my feedback similarly.
Absolutely.
Right?
So I think since we're talking about leadership, it is for the leader to portray these qualities of receiving feedback, and having an open communication with his team members, then probably analyzing it objectively before he works towards it.
Absolutely. Absolutely right, ma'am. Thanks for pointing that out.
So I think that it will just bring in leadership by example, a sample of leadership by example.
Yeah, very true.
Thank you, Bela ma'am. And Narayanan sir, we do have more questions, but since we are running a little short of time, I would appreciate if you can answer questions in the chat box, or maybe we can share your contact details and participants can get in touch with you.
Definitely. So Hari, you can share my my details. You can.
Yes, I'll do that. Yeah.
Please write in your queries and I will do my best to answer them. I don't have all the answers, but I'll do my best to answer them.
I think it's a very engaging discussion on leadership. It's a wonderful.
I would have loved to get this going on, but since we are committed to time, we are already behind schedule. So let's quickly move forward. First of all, thank you, Narayanan sir, for these insights and your amazing way of expressing the aspects of leadership through real life examples and Bollywood movies. That was an amazing session. Moving forward, we are now heading towards a very interesting section of this conclave. But before that, let me congratulate and thank Narayanan sir for this session.
Thanks.
And we are now moving forward with the book launch. So here's a small music and then over to Hari sir.
So Joey, can I request everybody to come on video, please?
Yes.
So we get an opportunity to also see everyone.
See everyone, yes.
Yeah, so can I request everybody to put on your videos? Hey, that's nice. Everybody on videos, and then Narayan and me are going to hold our book. Yes, everybody on video, please. Can I request everybody on video?
आजा आजा जिंद शामी आने के तले आजा जरी वाले नीले आसमाने के तले
Yeah, Joey, if you can put off the screen now.
Yes, sir.
Stop there. Thank you. And so when I say 3, 2, 1, Narayan and me are going to hold our little baby. And okay, a little background. It's a 59-minute read, which took 1.5 years to compile. So as they say in public speaking, the shorter you want to speak, the longer you take to prepare. So when I initially wrote the script for the book and I took it to Narayan and asked him to take a look at it and give his inputs, it was so insightful. He changed the whole paradigm, and it was written as a pure fiction. But then we made it a realistic fiction. So I think thanks, Narayan. And one of the most enriching books out of the 7 that I have written, and one of the very important books in the current times also, what we call as the enhanced VUCA world. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's getting enhanced every day. So we would love to be keynote speakers on leadership in any of the conferences or companies that you think you can organize. And both Narayan and me can come and speak about leadership. And he has given a lot of beautiful examples on the book itself in his talk and more. But I think the book will give you even better insights as you sit and read every page. So, sir, are we ready?
Yes.
So, Joey, as we hold the book, you can play the music again, if that is okay.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So here we go. 5, 4. We are learning new ways of launching these days. 3, 2, 1, and here we go. So here is Leadership Gita.
आजा आजा जिंद शामी आने के तले आजा जरी वाले नीले आसमाने के तले
Do we please take a screenshot? Do we please take a screenshot?
आजा आजा जिंदे शामी आने के तले है आजा जरी वाले नीले आसमाने के तले है जय हो जय हो
Thank you.
जय हो
Thank you so much. And here's the announcement for all of you. Whoever attended the conclave and joined in the beginning and stayed till the end. So Bharat, I'm looking at you. So whoever attended this conclave, okay, whoever attended this conclave,